Welcome to the Independent Workforce, the podcast where we explore the now and the future of work through the lens of temporary employment, such as freelancers, contractors, fractional experts, you name it. Here we speak with CEOs, recruiters, founders, and industry leaders about how they work with independent talent, the wins, the challenges, and the lessons learned. My name is Yurii. I'm growing the freelance market at freelancermap, an international platform that's been connecting top independent professionals with companies for over 20 years. And my guest is Katherine Steiner-Dicks, the founder of BuzzVestor Media, business journalist, freelancer advocate, and editorial consultant for the Freelance Informer, who's been covering private equity and venture capital for over 20 years while building her own freelance career in parallel and helping businesses hire right independent talent, and who definitely knows what makes freelancer business partnerships actually work. So, welcome, Kate.
Oh, welcome. Thanks for having me.
Super happy to talk to you. You know, you have this unique blend, unique combination of being a freelancer and helping businesses to hire the right freelancers to grow. So tell me, what shift have you noticed during the latest few years on the independent talent market, and where do you think it's going?
Okay. Well, I've been speaking to some CEOs of freelancer platforms, and I always want to bring people good news for the freelancers. I mean, we saw the first big boom in the financial crisis of 2008. It's the same thing we're kind of seeing now, mass redundancies. People have to go somewhere, so we saw a big boom then. Then again, then it equalized. Then in COVID, it went nuts again. I moved jurisdiction. I was running so many different projects, running so many different clients. It was great. So I was the one person who couldn't complain because it's my own business. But I think now we're in a really odd thing. We had a crazy time where everyone was hiring. I'm speaking, a lot of this is coming from the UK market. So speaking to freelancers, speaking to recruitment agencies, things like this, what we're seeing now is there's a freeze on hiring permanent staff. And that usually means there's going to be uptake in freelance roles. Unfortunately, what I'm seeing now is companies becoming really, really productive. They're either running, unfortunately, their current staff, doing more, making them more productive, whether that's using AI tools, or they're bringing in freelancers. But the big trend I'm seeing now on platforms like yours and others is that there's so much more competition among the own freelancers that these clients get quite picky. They get their people that they love, and they want to, they might do a 6-month project and then they want to work with them again. But what I'm also seeing is companies, the larger ones that can afford the budgets to have a nice onboarding process, but they want everything done. They want a platform that can onboard a freelancer that maybe is on a platform like yours, but they also want your company to also have the system to onboard someone who's just a one-off. So they want it all. They want the contracts to be flexible based on the work, the project, whether the person wants to stay, as an independent or if they're going to get taxed almost like an employee. So they want everything. So what I'm seeing is a boom, but it's slowing down, unfortunately, and we're seeing more people going freelance in the past 12 months, not necessarily because they wanted this freedom and independence like they did in the pandemic. It's by necessity because of the mass layoffs in tech as companies are turning into agentic enterprises. And you'll see big companies like Salesforce, they have this idea that they're going to be a agentic company, and then their clients see what they're doing. So we're going to see this funnel where there's less and less and less humans working on things, but there are some that can really call the shots, and that kind of equalizes the rates, especially if you can do AI in terms of not just using it on a daily basis, but building the products. So your project managers, your UX designers that are freelancers, they are now they have to self-teach themselves. And now it's not good enough. You now need to know how to build something with an AI tool, things like that. So I guess the trends I'm seeing is a lot. I'm seeing, people still have to be specialized, but clients expect so much more from their freelancers. They want you to be specialized. They want you to be working multiple projects. But what you have to be careful of as a client is I see these listings and they want literally, it's almost like six roles in one. And you're not helping anybody by that. You're just taking the mick, as as the British would say. So you have to really find out, what is a freelancer worth? And, is it worth, making them do so many jobs and not really be able to focus on one thing?
I feel like it's very much connected with current existing hiring process because when you hire a full-time expert, you hire for titles, skills, like general amount of experience, whatever. You don't hire a person for a specific task, which is very weird. And what we also see on the market, that shift from title hiring to outcomes hiring. So you have a specific task, and that's exactly what you're hiring. It's also interesting you mentioned that companies are sticky with one freelancer, someone they worked with and they keep forever working with. And I totally get it. It's so much easier when you find someone, you trust this person, then you put them on like hundreds of projects. And also on the other hand, it was a previous conversation with Mina Bastavros from Airbus. And I remember he told that we always make it open, make a very new project open, because it kind of like helps them to bring even better talent inside. Because at some point, you have a project and maybe you have one freelancer, but you are limited to the whole market. Maybe the moment you hired this person, someone else was busy and now you can tap into their experience. So, and also, to a point, I also see this like decline of freelancer projects. And as Thomas Mas, the CEO of FreelancerMap, recently made a post that there is decline, but decline in some parts and grow in other parts. So it's always like, I feel like there is some changes happening, as you've mentioned, because of AI. And AI is like not taking humans out of the equation. Yes, they remove some jobs and still it creates new ones. And also I feel like it's a huge moment that not that many companies understand the power of independent talent. They got used to hiring full-time experts and they think that they can remove full-time experts with AI, which is not always the case. You still need humans. So I'm curious, from your experience, what do you see as the biggest concern that companies raise before and maybe even while working with freelancers?
I think if they're bringing on someone even if they're working with an existing freelancer, a lot of freelancers will have worked in multiple industries, different clients. So they have that know-how on how to, they're bringing all their experience from all those clients and the problems they've had with those clients to the table. But I think when you're bringing on a new freelancer, I think the main issue is if you're working with, they're going to compare someone. So I see two different types of freelancers. The ones that kind of get the job done, do everything, tick the boxes, and then they kind of go. They're great. They do their job, but they don't do anything more. And now what I'm seeing with clients now is that they really appreciate to almost be a partner. You're not just thinking of that project, you're thinking of other things, how you can bring new products on board. But I think the main difficulty is they might be comparing people, whether individuals. So you really have to, that first initial interview or talk, some freelancers can sell themselves, others can't. So as a client, you can think, okay, I don't want to waste my time here, but you have to dig a little bit and say, you have to pose some problems to them. And hopefully the freelancer, that will help reveal what they know, because sometimes they just do a project, they go on, they forget even all the things that they've done sometimes. And, so I think what you need to, the main issue is making sure you really know the freelancers. You have to ask more deeper questions on the projects and the types of clients you dealt with. I think the concern from the freelancers is this person going to treat me like an employee? Are they going to encroach on my time when I'm working on other clients? It all depends on what type. If you're a contract, it's like on a fixed term contract, you're not working for anybody else. That's a different story. But if you're a freelancer, I run my own business, I have multiple clients. People don't always know who my clients are because I'm ghostwriting for law firms and things like that. So I think what you need to do on both sides, preempt any problems you could foresee and fix that in the dialogue before. So as a freelancer, you preempt your terms that you might want, things like that. Or you could say, okay, if this happens, who do I turn to in the organization? Things like that. So I think it's comparing your experience from before, but you really need to make sure you ask the right questions to people. I hope that answers your question.
What you answered about the first type of freelancers who do the bare minimum and then they out. It sounds like quiet quitting, So it feels like they're just doing.
But see, some people just like them. They come in, they come out. I think within journalism, sometimes you get they just file the copy, they go on to do the next thing, and they may or may not be available the next time, and they're great, but they just do with it. There's no to me that I think like a business, and I think all freelancers really need to start doing this. You aren't just project to project. Think like a business because you want that client. If they're a good client, you want them to hire you again. So give your feedback on stuff, on meetings. Don't just, file the copy and go. If that serves your purpose, fine. But if you really want to build partnerships, I would say get involved a little bit. You don't need to, be an employee, but you have to give some strategic value to clients now, and they will always think of you. And it also helps you. They will immediately think of you first for a new project or a new client that they bring on.
I would say also one of the benefits of freelancers is that they can call shit. So if something doesn't work, they are not being afraid of saying it out loud. They can tell you, hey, it doesn't work, that's why, and that's how we can fix it. And I feel like when you are building relationships with such people, you definitely getting, more than just a task done. You are getting a consultant, an experienced person, professional who is there to help you with your product building. But once again, I feel like it's always about like the future, like the building of product, and not that many people think about when they, hire someone at the moment. And I feel like it's also about expectations. So I'm curious, like from your experience, what are the biggest misalignments between companies' expectations and freelancer realities?
I think lots of times, I think because I've been in this long enough, I preempt every single situation. If a kid, my kid gets sick, or if one of their team can't deal with stuff, I preempt everything. I think the misalignment is usually expectations that person, if they're working with other clients, you have to realize if they're working with other clients, it's because they are in demand. And I think you have to respect, it has to be a dual respectful relationship. These are not employees, even though if they're a fixed term contract, they are, experienced people. So give them respect of their time. But I also think if you're a freelancer and for any reason that you're working with another client on this set day, you communicate that. You let them know because so I'm going to be working with this client today from this. You need anything, send me a WhatsApp if it's urgent. If not, you have that communication, that kind of expectation. But I also think what can happen, and is when you get too many cooks in the kitchen, when you're working on, you start bringing in people, and people are just, on a document or a Slack, and people are just saying their two bits, and it's just because they want to be seen, and that is really frustrating for freelancers. You need to minimize the amount of people sometimes that giving the feedback. Not if it's like you're doing a major consumer survey, that's different. But you have to let the client, know, say, okay, if we're going to bring certain people on, is this going to stop things from going forward? Or do we need this person's feedback right now or later, things like that. So don't know if that, but it's a lot of expectations and respecting the time of the freelancer if they're working with other clients, but then also as respect your client. They're going to be nervous that if they can't hear from you just let them know where you are, what you're doing, without a sense of control, but just, alleviate any of their worries.
I really like how you phrased it, that if freelancers are working with other clients, that it means that they are in demand, that it means that they are professional and they are delivering. And I feel like some companies, some people have exactly the opposite way of thinking. They think if freelancer works with other clients, it means that they will steal their data and they will go to all the other clients and shares their data with them, and then it will be go to their competitors and blah blah blah. So when sometimes when I hear that, I'm like, who are you talking about? Are you talking about some robbers or like some criminals, or are you talking about expert freelancers? I have no idea who you're talking about. So how to overcome this fear? Like what should companies keep in mind when they work with a freelancer who also works with other different clients?
Okay. I mean, if they're completely unrelated, I've had sometimes one client said, you are not allowed to work with any other private equity clients because you run a private client. I'm like, that's my whole business. Can't, sorry, can't do it. So I had to negotiate with that. So you give me an NDA on this particular thing, if that's the issue, or we have something in writing. Because actually in the UK, if you start having that type of control, if you go to a court and the tax authority is going to say you are effectively an employee, you can't do that to a freelancer. If you are in a fixed term contract for a fixed period of time, that might be slightly different. But believe me, if you're trading secrets or giving data, that's not good for you as a freelancer because no one's, if they find out, you're never going to be hired again. But also, why would you want that mess, right? So, but I think you put it in a contract. If you have something that's cybersecurity, yeah, I totally get it. We've seen cases of this in cybersecurity cases. People don't want the contractors anymore because they don't know where they're coming from. So if they're remote, North Korea, we've had this issue where they are showing completely different profiles. If you've never met this person before, yeah, you get it. It depends on what you're doing. And you have that talk, you have that open talk. You say, what have you done before with your other clients? Have they been nervous about this? How can you reassure us? And if you need to put something in a contract that's not saying you can't ever work for any of these competitors, but you have to put in that you cannot share a certain amount of details, data, customer, yeah, that's just, you do that if you were outsourcing a larger company. Think of them as a company and how you would, think of that, I think.
This episode of The Independent Workforce is brought to you by freelancermap, the home of freelancing. Whether you are looking to hire top freelance talent fast or a freelancer ready to find your next big project, freelancermap connects the right people with the right work. No endless job boards, no guesswork, just direct access to verified experts and opportunities across the globe. Visit freelancermap.com and start building your next success story today. Yeah, I feel like it's all about the background check. It's the hardest part for many companies to do because when you are working, let's say, with someone in between, some hiring company, they do this for you. So basically, the people that they source to you, you can trust because, like, the worst case scenario, you will go to this company and, hey, we are suing you, like, pay us this money because of we got these problems. And then when they go to just random persons they found on some platform, how do they trust? Or they should spend a lot of time going through this KYC process, etc. So you were talking about the freelancers, like external experts, and still there is a difference between internal and external experts. Even though they are doing pretty much similar tasks, approach is different. So what is the difference? What is the main difference between internal and external talent?
I think what it is that I can't say anything because my husband is a freelance and he's very good at his job. He's very hungry and he's still got that gung ho attitude and he's in it. But I think because freelancers, if you don't produce, you don't get paid. You can't just you have to have a little bit of a hunger. So you have to, put in more 2 cents. He said, yes, you have these freelancers just kind of do their job and go. But if you're working on a long-term project, you're going to be bringing the expertise you've had from multiple clients. You don't have to say X clients that, oh, when I worked in this particular industry or this particular project, this was an issue, without revealing if it's, you can't disclose it. But you're bringing multiple I mean, I don't know, I'm talking for myself because I'm a private equity journalist. I have to know about every single sector, every single trend going on. And I think it's very important that these freelancers, they keep open to other different projects, not just within their industry, but over time, they have to maybe broaden that skill set to another sector. Just because you're going to bring more information, more detail, more nuance to your clients. So, a lot of these companies now that are, becoming agentic, they weren't AI companies before, but now everybody is becoming AI companies, and they will. Yet I find very funny that some people have on topic are saying, "Oh yeah, we're just going to hire in the future people who have humanities degrees," and I'm like, "What? This is so confusing." You know what I mean? Like, what? I'm thinking, how is it possible? I've got a nephew who's studying data science and things like that, and I'm thinking, "Oh God, is he going to be out of a job because they're going to want more humanity specialties?" Well, I think everything will come around, but yeah, I think it's just interesting how everybody is becoming an agentic enterprise in some way. And it helps, freelancer platforms that can be streamlined in certain processes, clients, everywhere, they get their answers quicker by doing that. So, yeah, it's good.
I feel like it's it's like a snake biting its own tail, because currently AI is removing, let's say, junior experts. You still need senior expert to ensure that AI gives you the right results. If you cut junior experts, how will you get senior experts in the future? There is no way to get senior experts in the future. Senior experts will be retired or they will go freelancing. So it feels like, if people are fully relate to AI, yes, they might gain some, small boost, some small improvement, but then it's not a long term. Like, for example, once again, there are different movies, there are different thoughts, ideas. I watched Black Mirror a lot, so I know how it can happen, not in a good way,
Yeah.
but maybe it can be in a good way. So it's always a question. And also, if we are talking about freelancers, about independent experts, that's also the beauty, because you still need these people with a wide market experience. You still need to know what's going on the markets, what's going on in other companies, what's going on in other niches. And sometimes when those people are coming to a company, they're bringing in not just their skills, but they're bringing the whole market overview, and also they can supercharge your team, which can always be great. It will never be worse if you get some new blood into a company and also share some experiences with your existing full-time experts. And if we talk about these companies who are not hiring flexible talent, so once again, I clearly see that companies are moving into this more blended workforce. It's different balance. There is definitely full-time experts, of course. There is definitely AI, and they also add in flexible experts. So from your perspective, those companies who are not adding this flexible talent, what do they miss on?
Scale, scale, scale. If you are, I'm not going to toot my horn, but I remember I was hired to small kind of events publishing industry in the renewables energy. I was pounding out whole new news channels on the different set by a month. But we were only able to do that because we had a network of freelancers around the world to do that. So I was kind of the commissioning. We did that, built something big. We got everybody's perspective because everyone wasn't just sitting in the same UK London office. We had someone in Dubai, we had someone in Spain. We were able to get immediate, quick, because freelancers are hungry. They want the work. You had to analyze their backgrounds and things if they were appropriate, but we did it in a very quick way. Where if you're going to have people who maybe sit in an office that feel like, oh, I'm being pushed too hard. I'm not. Yeah, I don't want to say that you use and abuse your freelancers, but when it comes to scale, and this is usually startups or VC-backed companies, they're all talking about scale. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes they move too fast, but you will scale a business quicker, a project quicker. I even know large freelancer platforms, when they want to build something quick, they actually hire. So the freelancer platform they have their own employee, but they're also hiring specialists to come in and fix things and things like that. So if you're on the fence about being the freelancer, I'm quite surprised. If you are a government organization and everything's quite hush hush and secret, I get it. But the Ministry of Defense in the UK, they hired contractors for years. It's only tax legislation has brought these people inside. So Yeah, I think you will be getting so much more for your money. And remember, you're not going to be paying pensions and not going to be sick pay. That's a risk we take on as freelancers, but you're getting more for your money. And, if things don't work out, it's okay. It's not the end of the world, but you can bring someone else on. You should always be looking for new talent, freelance talent. It should never just be permanent because you never know when you're going to have to scale, when you have to go, scale down and just bring in specialists for specific projects.
And you also told that you did it fast. So I feel like it's
Oh,
also
yeah.
one of the benefits of hiring independent talent because you can do it like in a week, maybe even faster.
And you do it on your own accord. You do it, because you've done it before, or you just get on with it. That's the best freelancers. You take the brief, you take what they want. You always communicate if you have a question, but you just get on with it, right? And you don't. It's like if you've ever been able to just finally give something away, and you think, oh, they're never going to do it right, and then they do it right, and you're like, oh, what a relief. And then you do it
Yeah.
again and you do it again, you do it again. So it's this ability to lose control a little bit, but then you get so much more when you do.
It's like everything people don't know about. It's like trying something for the first time. You think that it will be the worst experience in your life, and then it gets to be the best experience of your life. So, but you never know unless you try. And you also talked about the network of freelancers. And I think I hear these conversations specifically from the recruiter side, like, why should I go connect with freelancers if I don't have any projects to share with them? And sometimes when I'm personally connecting with freelancers and I tell, hey, I'm like representing the Freelancer Map platform, we are building the future of work, we are helping freelancers to get more projects. They always ask the first question, do you have projects for me? And I'm like, look, I'm not a recruiting person. I'm here to ask like, what are your needs? What are your challenges? I'm here to create a space to connect all of us in the one sector, in the one space that we can like freelancer recruiters and clients that we can work together. And they're like, okay. So, to the question of network, how much time did you spend on building this network, and how do you do this?
In terms of network, in terms of my own with Freelance Informer
Like
or
overall freelance networks that you use for clients.
okay. I mean, okay, I've been very lucky because I started freelancing 20 something years ago. And I highly think whether you are a young person getting in your first career, make a name for yourself however you can. And that's what I did. If I just, I couldn't just become a freelance journalist. I had to make a name for myself in a certain industry. And then I was able to go freelance. And a lot of my work is literally word of mouth. I can't remember the last time I haven't interviewed for anything in a very long time. But yes, once you meet a client, you're kind of, putting yourself forward in your business. But in terms of building a community and network is if recruiters are not listening to what freelancers want, because believe me, there are lots of things on LinkedIn. Freelancers are so fed up with, sometimes recruitment agencies. So they're not really helping me. There's a lot of this ghosting going on that is horrible. Even if it's an automated message that you could say, okay, it's been 2 weeks. Yes, you didn't get this job, but something had because it is heart-wrenching for people who are applying for 600 jobs. I mean, I've even heard of this, but the recruiters can't absorb that either. But it's this dual respect, and recruiters have to find out what's going on because it comes to a point with clients, they're getting named and shamed if they don't pay on time. It's coming to where freelancers are like, I don't think I need to use recruitment agencies anymore. I'd rather go on my own. They have to, I feel like freelancers at the moment are feeling like the recruiters are not giving them, it's a one-way place right now because it is a hiring end market, not the other way around. But they always have, I mean, they have to always be on the hunt. I mean, how boring if they're not finding new people or community. If you are representing contractors, you have to know what they're talking about. You have to know what the industry issues are. Because they might choose another recruitment agency over you the next time, or they might just get word of mouth and just direct to a client in the future, and they lose that sales commission or whatever because they just go direct. But Yeah, I think it's so important about community because it's so many new people are coming into freelancing too for the first time. And unfortunately, there are some platforms that they won't hire, so even though they've had a million years of experience, they might necessarily get hired because they didn't know how to be a freelancer. When I spoke to a CEO of a freelance platform, they said, no, we only hire people who have freelanced before and have years of experience. So we're getting a lot of new people coming into this world, and they, recruiters are spoiled for choice now. They've got so much talent. They might be able to help some of these, great talent come on the market, start their contracting career, but they have to do that by knowing what the issues are already with freelancers.
It's interesting that you mentioned the recruiters and the way how they answer because I'm currently connecting with many recruiters on LinkedIn, and I feel like they are the busiest people ever. They are busier than presidents. So they
Mhm.
never have time to answer, and usually they answer to me like after a third or fourth message, the follow-up message that I write, and then, oh, sorry, I missed that. And I'm curious, like, if they are so busy, it means that everything goes right. But if everything goes right, most likely you wouldn't be so busy. So it's always like a question, like
There's
what's
so
what's really
much,
going on?
there's too many people applying for too little jobs. That's what we've got. So they're trying to do their best. If you've got to sieve through hundreds of CVs or portfolios, but there's also, and I've heard this many a time, this isn't like if you, there's like, people, freelancers who work for BBC, they've got BBC Scotland that a lot of these recruiters or projects, they pick the same freelancers again. They're not being lazy, like, well, we know these guys are doing great. So they're not even sieving through some of those they'll put those people first sometimes versus the new people thing. But it's too much. Or it's because of how easy it is to apply now or the onboarding process. They're weeding through so many CVs or projects and then or portfolios and it's just noise. Yeah. Because maybe the SEO or whatever they're looking through their system isn't picking these right people up and they don't have the time to nurture the relationships that they used to, maybe like in high level headhunting days. They don't have that. Yeah.
The craziest part is that if you connect with a freelancer, you get like if you build a relationship with one person, you build a relationship with dozens of people because freelancers are not usually doing things on their own. They have some peers, they are members of some communities, they are connected on LinkedIn with like hundreds of freelancers, and they are happily to refer someone. Because if we are talking about full-time experts, yes, they make a few friends at their workplace. They are not making dozens or hundreds of friends as freelancers. So I feel like with a little less, okay, you spend a little more time on one relationship, but you get much more in bulk altogether. And also to the point of building this relationship, like if you dependent on the one person and this person is constantly getting hired and rehired, like you're missing out on so many things and still you have so many times and to a point that you mentioned like, there is too small amount of projects. So I feel like recruiters need to switch from hiring, like going through all the CVs to go into companies and like talent advocating for the benefits of hiring freelancers. Why don't they go and create more projects for people? Because it's not that really hard, I mean, like if you are working together, it's hard when you are doing everything by yourself, but not that hard if you are doing it together. And I'm curious, like if you could design the perfect system for hiring freelancers, what would it look like?
Well, from both sides of the thing, from the client side, it is highly automated, yet you definitely have a freelancer community representative in your business to keep the freelancers happy. Because if they're not happy, they talk. They talk. And some are really risky, they name and shame on LinkedIn, but I don't agree with that. But you have to have someone internally that represents the freelancers. If you are, it can't just be the typical HR person. If you're really going to build your business and you have more than maybe 10 freelancers anytime or more than that, 20, 25. You need someone who represents them, who is dealing with the onboarding process. And it can't be, the freelancing onboarding process cannot be as clunky as a normal, typical, employee thing. It has to be quite quick. I mean, if you can get it done in, hours, it's great. You have to have the templates that just give you everything that you need, and you need freelancers to help you create those templates, what they need to upload. And I think also, I don't know, each market is different. In the EU, UK is very difficult with taxation, IR35 and off payroll. It's not just how the contract is set out, it's how the real relationship is. If there's control, if you say you can't replace yourself with someone else, there's all these different things. So most freelancers don't want to be inside IR35, which means they are pretty much getting PAYE. They're getting paid like an employee, but they don't get the benefits. You could be working for a huge mass company and you don't get any of the benefits. So they want to be as independent as possible. And now that more legislation is coming out, it is protecting the recruitment firms and the end clients from these, I guess, dodgy umbrella companies that say that they're paying the tax and they don't, and all these things. So there's more protections. But I think the perfect thing is the onboarding process is quick. It's highly automated, where you know what you're getting, but also all the tax, the inside, the out, whatever the role involves, because each one is different. You can't have one template for each freelancer, and you can't ban freelancers who want to run their own company and have their own limited company. You can't do that if you want the top-notch people. You won't get them. You have to be open and have any kind of freelancer that's either consultant, things like that, and make sure you have some kind of insurance in place, that everyone is protected by this contract and the relationship. And if the relationship starts changing, something in the system alerts that you're like, okay, wait a minute, we're treating this more like an employee type thing. We better change the terms of the agreement. If there's project scope or creep and things like that, we need to account for that too. So perfect thing is where it's highly automated, highly easy to communicate, and freelancers and clients don't have to worry about tax. That is an issue. Like you're going to get a huge tax bill either way, and everyone's kind of protected. And freelancers get paid on time. I did this whole thing where people think that small freelancers can give credit to large multinationals, because that's what you're doing. Why am I giving you free credit? 69, no way. So I think the terms have to be, be realistic. If you want to have these people work for you, do not lose their invoices and, and things like that. No, you have someone internally that says, no, we have to make sure that the whole relationship is smooth. And because the CEOs, we really like that person to work for us, where are they? And if they don't connect that these people weren't paid on time, the relationship has to be known throughout, whoever's working with them, that everything's going smoothly. And but you need a lot of money to do that, to cover the invoicing and things like that. If the client doesn't pay on time, if the platform does, that's the risk they take of doing business. So I think, but not all platforms are that big. So it's finding that. So everyone gets paid on time, everyone is respected. I don't know if I covered everything, but
I feel like paid on time is like the number one thing, because it's for me, it's always a very surprising thing to hear that huge companies like billions of capitalization are paying like 60 net. Like, are you kidding me? Like, you're getting things right now, right away, getting all this experience, get shit done, and then you ask to pay like 2 months later. Like, you're ruining people's lives. Like, try not to pay your full-time experts on time and see what will happen. Like they will boycott you. You will just go out of market like in a week. Yeah.
I think the difference is it's hard, because as a freelancer, you are a business. You have to always think you're a business. So don't. When you buy something on Amazon doesn't just ship it to you for free and you just say, I'm going to pay you whenever I want. You don't do that. So you have to think like a business. But also, what's very different with freelancers versus, a large company, business type relationship, is it's very human. This person, you have to respect them. Where if you maybe, I think what's happening is large multinationals are treating the freelancers with the same credit terms as they would, large manufacturing companies. No, that's not how it works. And that has to be communicated by someone internally in the business that no, we don't treat our freelancers this way. And freelancers have to speak up. They say, no, I need to know the terms. And if you don't pay me on time, you'll get charged more, things like that. But that's the thing I'm seeing. Sometimes it's the platforms that write the templates and the freelancers have no say. And I think each contract has to be based on that working relationship for it to work.
If you could remove just one barrier on the company side to hiring freelancers, what would it be?
In the UK, it would be the off payroll and IR35. I think what's happened is it's really hurt the people that are the engine of every country. I know we have this expression in Britain, originally British, but it's got the white man ban. It's the guy who's got the plumbing business thing. That keeps the industry, the whole economy going. And now freelancers have kind of in that group now. Yes, we sit from our laptops in a remote, but when you limit someone to be self-employed, it hurts not only them, but the tax income, because they're just working for one client. Where if they were working for multiple clients, the tax works out. Even though they say, oh, they pay lower taxes. Well, no, you've just lost on VAT. You've just lost on a whole bunch of things. So I think if you take those barriers off, Britain, which is going through a really not a great economy at the moment. It's not going through unemployment. Things are sluggish. We need to do something differently, and it's going to take a lot of campaigning. When someone told me you're going to have at least 50,000 freelancers to campaign for them to change this legislation, another 500,000 pounds to do. I'm like, whoa, okay, no, we got we got to do something where we don't have to pay too much and make politicians listen and say, let's speak to the tax authorities. How can we fix this so it's easier for companies to hire freelancers? Because there's more people becoming freelancers every single month. This is how the workforce is working. It's blended now. It's not just, employees. So you're not helping the economy by stopping people hiring you because of a tax legislation that takes someone's 30% off their income. They can't afford to take that job.
Yeah. It's like, I had a conversation with a company about creating an event for freelancers, like mutual collaboration, because I don't have a room. I don't know where to do it. And I can bring speakers, I can bring freelancers. And I talk to them and they're like, oh, we need so much budget. We need so much time. We need so much preparation. I'm like, look, you are doing it like 1, 2, 3 steps. You don't need anything of that. Like you just need water, coffee and cookies. That's it and a room where to bring freelancers. And now, so they told me like, no, it will take so much time. But now I'm just hosting this event with another company and they are very fast and I'm doing everything. And they just, hey, here is a room. Please go use it and do whatever you want. And I'm like, thank you. And we have 100 people coming. Like, it's always like, if you want to deal really with it, if you want to overcome this bureaucracy, you can find a way. If you are just always finding for excuses, sorry, you'll never find a way. So
you have to say, we'll handle it. And one thing I really want to promote, because I've seen it in New York, are happy hours. If you know the term of happy hours, you get kind of your cheap drinks, cheap nibbles at a bar. You can meet someplace. And for freelancers to meet, and we have that Meetup, this app, they have that in certain, we have it here in Valencia in Spain. And I think it's a great idea. Freelancers want to just let off some steam. They want to meet. You could start something like that. You get the freelancers going, and then you take videos and you say, look at all these people come together. They're happy. Yes, if a client wants to say, okay, let's meet at a bar or something, I'll put so much towards the drinks or whatever, but the rest, and they get to be in a relaxed environment and meet a whole bunch of freelancers. But yeah, I think to convince people, you have to say, I got this. You don't have to hire anybody. You don't have to give this job to anybody else. I'll handle it, and you'll just see the results later. I mean, it's again taking that problem off their hands is what freelancers do, and you have to do that with the events too.
No, Kate, I wish to have the sky as a limit, but time is a limit to our conversation. So, the final question. What advice would you give to companies just starting to use freelancers and to freelancers entering the market?
Okay, so I think what you need to do is speak to your current people you know. Say, have you ever worked with freelancers before in your previous job? If you've never worked with them, or immediately go to your podcast, go to the Freelance Informer. We were showing what the freelancer is doing, what they're capable of, and just alone go to the VC-backed companies, the portfolio companies, and find out. Speak to them. Say you've probably built your business using freelancers. What works, what doesn't work. You need kind of people who've done it before. You don't need to go through anything elaborate. Just speak to people that you know hire freelancers. Maybe not recruitment agencies just yet. You can, or you speak to people like yourself, or Matthew and I in the UK, or someone like myself I've been promoting freelancing and remote working for 20 years before everyone knew what it was. But if you are a freelance, someone who's, whether you've decided to go freelance for whatever reason, could be because you've lost your job and people aren't hiring people over 50, and it's a common problem. They think, okay, I don't want to retire yet. I want to use semi-retirement, or I need to they will set up a business. But I think don't get caught up too much in, oh, I have to build a website, I have to do this. Go on LinkedIn, start making comments in things on industry, things that you know about, make yourself known that way. Give tips and advice. If you see some trend, talk about it, get people engaged in it. But you have to realize it's unbelievably competitive right now, and you have to really pick which avenue you want to go. If you want to go very niche, you have to self-teach yourself skills that your company may not have taught you. Start using AI tools all the time in your own business. Say, I want to do this for my clients. Do it for yourself first. See how it works. But you have to put your business cap on. You are no longer an employee. You can be let go. You can work for a client on and off for how many, and then the next day, sorry, we changed direction, or your whole life will change overnight. So think like a business, but expect some competition. Just because you have 20 years experience in something, and yes, maybe you might get hired, but a lot of, you're going to have to maybe do that direct contact consulting first, and then build your way up from there.
Last but not least, name 2 people I should reach out to talk about the independent workforce.
Oh, I see. Who have we talked to before? Well, I mean, I've got actually person I partnered with Freelance Informer. Nick, he's great. He has multiple software companies. He's in recruitment tech. Yeah, look up. I can sign up with him. He is someone who is like absorbed so much, and he's thinking 10 steps ahead, and he's always building new apps for dealing with contractors, making life easier for everybody. Yeah, Nick Woodward's a good person to start with, he said. And I have to see. I mean, there's so many different people, but Dave Chaplin, for someone in the UK, if you want to find out the ins and outs of tax compliance, he's a real advocate for freelancers and letting them, the ones that truly want to be independent. So he's a good person to speak to. But yeah, but I could put some more names out there. I don't want to embarrass anyone, but, yeah.
I will definitely ask you some follow-up questions. And what is the best way to connect with you?
Best way to get with me is through LinkedIn, or my email, which you'll find on buzzvestor.com. But yeah, through LinkedIn, find me through. I'm always commenting on the freelance economy. That's the other thing I do. I write for many other clients. I've been very lucky. They just say, Kate, want to build a whole news channel? take it, run with it. So yes, if you are a business that's looking to have a news channel based on your industry, yeah, I'm more than happy to help. And please give me a budget to hire more freelancers too. So it's great.
Exactly. That's how it has to be. And Kate, thank you so much for
Oh,
investing
thank
so
you.
much of your time and specifically for being a freelancer yourself for such a long time because you're very like inspiration that okay, maybe market is moving forward if people like you are keep on being here for so many decades and still moving forward and
Don't forget.
and still sharing this experience with the whole world and advocating about hiring freelancers, independent talent, etc. It means a lot. So thank you so much for doing it so openly, and thank you a ton for sharing your experience with me.
My pleasure. Take care. And I wish your business all the luck. And oh, by the way, Polish, anyone who's in Poland, freelancers, it's a lot of work going to come from you. Recruitment agencies, I've just heard in the UK, are now for UK freelancers, but they're going to Poland to hire people there. So that could be good positive news for the freelancers there. I
That's
want to
amazing.
end on a positive note.
Super amazing. And yeah, see you in the freelance world. And for listeners, thank you for joining us on this episode of the Independent Workforce. I hope you've taken one step closer to working smarter with freelance talent. If you enjoyed this conversation, subscribe to learn even more and share it with your colleague. And remember, the future of work is now.